and welcome to Pain and Bread Quarterly Slush Pile. You don't know how we're lucky that you've tuned in, but you are also lucky. It's a very, very special episode for a bunch of reasons, and you're going to find out why as we go. So what we do here is discuss poetry that has been submitted to the magazine. We contact the poet and say, hey, we'd love to discuss you on the show. And they almost always say yes. So if we ever write you, please say yes. So we're doing something so fun today because it's this has happened before. This part has happened before, but not very often. It is part 2 of a conversation about Eli Karren's poems. So we're going to be discussing one but very long poem by Eli. So it's Eli Karren part 2 is what we're working for. And we have a special guest today. But let me just keep on myself for a second because that's how I am. My name is Kathleen Volk-Miller. If you want to know any more about me, you can go to my website, KathleenVolkMiller.com. So lucky that I got to buy that name, aren't I? And I'm comfortable at home, you know, Winnie the Pooh in it here. And happy to welcome our special guest, Tobi Kassim, today. And he's a poet, and what's awesome and a total surprise to me is that he's a Wally, which is a Warren Wilson alumni, with another one of our editors. So I'll let them take care of all of that, but super excited to welcome you here today with us, Tobi. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I am in New Haven.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And we'll go 6,000 miles away and say hi to Marion.
I love that we can go 6,000 miles away and say hi to me. Hello, it's Marion. I'm far away from home. I'm missing you all, and so glad to welcome Tobi to the conversation. And from here, I'm going to bounce to there. Lisa, say hi.
Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Zirkle. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am thrilled to welcome Tobi to our number today, and I'm glad that Marion is calling in from the future and warning us about any potential things we need to worry about from this evening. She's in the evening, we're in the morning. It's craziness here. We're just jumping time warps. And I'll send it over to Lily. Lily, if you want to say hello, Lily in Philly.
Hi, I am Lily in Philly. Pretty much same here, just chilling. Getting ready for this to start the day as one normally would do. Very strangely cold after yesterday. It's very pretty warm yesterday in Philly. Now it is very freezing cold. Not a big fan of the temperature jump. Pick a side.
Yeah.
And that's my soapbox.
It's that time for us, yeah, where you never know what it's going to be. I haven't put my shorts away. I wear shorts on Sunday, right? And it's freezing today. So anyway, we have things that are much more interesting to talk about than the weather. So, you know, pour your wine and join Marion, or pour your coffee and join the rest of us. And I don't think, Slushies, that in any way you can mess this up. It's Christmas morning for you. You can listen to part 2 first, or listen to part 1 first. Whatever you open up and listen to will be a wonderful gift. I do think that maybe Marion can handle this poem. We have and we are a small group today, guys, but what's wonderful is we're an odd number.
Or
right?
Just that we're odd.
We're odd. Well, that's always been the case, but today our number reflects it.
And Tobi's like, speak for yourself.
As someone who likes to talk about poetry, I think I'm also odd in the larger population.
Yeah. Well, Tobi, I don't know if I know Jason Schneiderman, you know, he's usually here, is the person who actually asked you to join us, but we should tell the Slushies and you, Tobi, that you are our first in what we hope will be a series of special guests. Not every single episode, but we're going to be sprinkling special guests, and you're our first one. So grateful for that.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to kick off the guest roulette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay. All right. And so I am the lucky one because I missed out on the conversation of Eli Karren's poems in the first version of a conversation, or the first round of conversation. So I'm delighted to be able to join in this conversation and try to read this beautiful poem. So here I go. Ready? Franchise Reboot 1. We sat at the diner in Snoqualmie, quoting lines back and forth to each other, saying what we could remember without fidelity, without choosing a character or a scene. We got the coffee, the cherry pie, took pictures with a piece of wood that the waitress passed across the bar, cradling it like a newborn. Earlier, we had gone to the waterfall, and I confessed that I had been falling in love with a coworker, or rather that it felt that way, melodramatic, full of will they, won't they tension. You said expertly that that was probably the only exciting thing about it, that not everything in life has to be a soap opera. Later that night, when you went off to chaperone a high school dance, I saw a movie about a woman who fucks a car. Outside the theater, some guys smoked cigarettes and wondered aloud if originality was dead. I told them that the only glimmer of the original is the terroir, the local language, the dialect and vernacular, all the shit you suppress when you move away from your childhood home, the things you pay a therapist to excise from you in a room comprised only of Ikea furniture. 2. On the long Uber back to your house, I thought about the future of nostalgia, the car careening through downtown Seattle, past the Sean Kemp cannabis shop and the Museum of Pop Culture, which held a laser light show on its lawn. The whole drive, I had the words tangled in my brain and was trying to recite Matthea Harvey's The Future of Terror. I remembered only the Generalissimo's glands and the scampering, the faint sounds of its recitation humming below the car's looping advertisements for Wandavision. In my head, the possibility of infinite worlds thrummed. Once, at a farmer's market, I watched an elderly man wander through the stands, past the kids playing with pinwheels and eating ice cream, a VR headset strapped to his face, his hat in his hand, the muffled sound of tears in his vicinity. I always wondered what he had seen, what reduced him to tears on a May afternoon, his hands splayed forward, a little drunk with sun and regret, reaching out towards something. 3. This I tend to gussy up at parties. A lie I tell myself because I want to believe in true love. As I say in the diner, the owls are not what they seem. But at what point does the false supersede the real? When you came home, I was crying on the couch, rewatching its rejection of closure. Its protagonist catatonic for 16 hours, a walking, talking middle finger. Just so we can have this moment where he says the line and has the suit and we hear the famous song and are embraced again. Seeing you, seeing old friends, this is how I always feel. Reminded of this pond deep in the woods, somewhere I went to only once, but keep returning to in dreams. I remember how we hiked an hour out and slipped below the water as the sun began to set. In the dream, sometimes there is an island. Sometimes we swim to its surface. Sometimes the moon arises, its gravity pulling us deeper out above the blackness, where the shale slips to the bottom. I'm never sure if it is when I sink into the water or exit that I become someone else. Wake always with a lyric on my lips. This is the me I've missed. The one that survives the factory reset, the franchise reboot, the one I dreamt of every morning when closure was something to be evaded, treated like the cars in a Frogger game. But not here with you, halfway across the country. If I grasp gently, I can take the headset from my eyes. I can almost see where the red curtains part and the sycamores begin.
Wow, wow, wow. Beautiful, beautiful job.
Yeah, great reading,
Wow.
Marion. That was a marathon.
Thank
You did a
you.
fantastic job.
Wow, Eli, this poem, the way it just cascades.
So, Slushies, while everybody's taking a breath there and thinking, I will remind you that if you want to take a look at this, you can go to pbqmag.org and read along. I mean, that was a lot to hear, for all of us. And I think you all know that we do pre-vet, but only one or two of us take a look, and we have no conversation about the work prior to. There's no rehearsal for this at all. Sometimes I think we should, but no rehearsal. So when you hear us go quiet, it's probably because we're just thinking. And if you want to pause and take a look at the poem, you can go take a peek.
So I'm so glad to hear you say that, KVM, because I hadn't read the poem before reading the poem. And the surprise and the delight of, Sean Kemp Cannabis Shop is just fun to say. And there in section 2 is Matthea Harvey. Right. And I haven't, had a chance to read her name out loud in many a moon. So it's really interesting to see how Eli is sort of weaving in both pop culture references, poetry references, allusions in this weave, right, of part nostalgia, part reportage of what happened in a diner.
Yeah.
I think we should also say, as Marion read it, it is in 3 sections. Each stanza is roughly 9-ish, 10-ish lines, changing as it goes. And it's somewhat consistent, although this also switches, like with each shift in time, the stanza will also shift. So like each stanza has a different time stamp on it.
And they're all longer, but I don't think there's consistency to
No,
the
there
how many
isn't.
lines. Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't. I'm just trying to describe for the people who don't have it quite in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I think we probably need to discuss is the reference to Twin Peaks, and if that is something that is instantly recognizable to people, or if I mean, it's an old TV show, and it's, I think 1990 was when it aired, and it's that's the diner in Snoqualmie, and the piece of wood being passed back and forth and the cherry
Oh,
pie. So I don't know if that resonated with people, but I think that also has to do with the ending and the shifting time periods. I'm not sure that this goes to some conversations we've had in previous episodes about how much you need to know if there's a reference, and does it work without it? I think it does, but for me, I was like, oh, Twin Peaks, that's the franchise. But
I love that you got that. I didn't, right? And
Yeah.
I'm, a diner and cherry pie, of course, right? But it didn't resonate at all with or I didn't catch the illusion.
Yeah. For some reason, Twin Peaks is having a resurgence right now.
Mhm.
But I think even more, I am thinking of very particular poems that we discussed at length about whether or not it mattered, right? That series. I don't think it matters at all. I think it might be like when you watch one episode of a show or many episodes, the character's better, but it can still stand alone. I feel like this stands alone, and the Twin Peaks reference would make it a bit richer. But if you don't get it, I think you'll be.
Well,
I don't think it's
Lisa,
necessary.
but Lisa sounds like she knows some shit about Twin Peaks. Did you? And what's your experience of the poem?
Well, I will say, I had kind of a knowing response to, oh yeah, and like I knew when we get to the diner in Snoqualmie and its franchise reboot, I was like, huh, Is that Twin
Ah,
Peaks? And by the time they get to cherry pie. So when they're talking about, quoting the lines back and forth, I'm instantly thinking this is Twin Peaks. And it's
Right.
not a show that I never got on the train. It like people were completely obsessed with it, and I think it's interesting because it's an experience that I don't think we can have now, like that shared uh, cultural moment where everyone is just on fire with some strange thing, and you'd go into the office the next day and everybody's like, "Did you see it? Was it the log lady?
Yeah.
Who killed
ah,
Laura Palmer?"
Mm.
And
yeah.
meanwhile, Toby and Lily are like, "What the hell are they talking about?"
Huh.
We don't know this at all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean the reason why somebody my age would know Twin Peaks is because of the franchise reboots, right? Like I think they did a movie and then they did an HBO show. So I didn't know that I didn't recognize that scene in this poem as the speaker putting himself into a Twin Peaks scene. But now that I recognize that, oh, it's like the speaker is inhabiting a franchise reboot of a sort, it's actually kind of fascinating because there's, like there in the first stanza, there's more than enough room to imagine that Eli's persona
Yeah.
is the person in the coffee shop with a friend. And the reason why I actually raised my eyebrow was because I was like, oh, coffee and cherry pie sounds so commonplace. Like it sounds like this kind of American or
Yeah.
Americana scene. Which is also kind of what Twin Peaks is fascinated by. So yeah, I like the way that the poem offers a double reading in the beginning, but doesn't hit you over the head with it or insist upon you knowing about
Yeah.
um,
I don't
Twin
think.
Peaks characters.
Right.
And also the idea that the speaker is in Twin Peaks, but also like miming Twin Peaks is like a nice little meta moment. But again, that might be too in depth.
Yeah, I think they take it back right away too. The all of the other details. It's not like everything's lining up with Twin Peaks. You know, I think it is exactly how you said it, Toby. Just the idea of a reboot. You know.
The other thing that it takes from Twin Peaks is this kind of playing with timelines. Because I think
Mm.
from what I understand of the show is like multiple possibilities of how things turn out in the end. And as this poem progresses, we have, as I said before, generally as each stanza shifts, it's a shift in time. And, in the second part, when the speaker is on the Uber back to the house, they're thinking about the future of nostalgia, which is an
Mm-hmm.
interesting twist, right? Um, Almost like the future of the past. And then the next stanza is thinking of the poem, The Future of Terror. And then the next stanza after that goes to the old man wearing the virtual reality headset and wandering through the farmer's market, and he's got his own reality. So there's
Mm.
all these different timelines that are weaving together. Um, and it's fascinating.
And the poem being in the same paragraph as Wandavision.
Yes,
That
yes.
that's pretty great.
Yes, that the speaker is thinking of the poem, and yet he's being talked at by other stories. Like you can't even, like, even in a car, you can't escape the screens now, right? There is no overarching story. There's stories coming at you from everywhere.
Well said.
Yeah, I wonder why that was so big. Wandavision. Why did that only last one season? Just made me think about that.
Uh,
That was huge. I thought in my
It
world.
was, yeah, it felt, I think it was in part because like all the Marvel TV shows were meant to kind of dovetail into a big um crescendo-ish
Right.
Avengers, I think. I don't know. Well, don't quote me on that though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like a lot of the Marvel shows, like Loki and WandaVision were kind of really important really exciting things for audiences, but also were very teleological about like creating certain timelines for the movies to make sense. But again, I haven't studied it very closely. I liked WandaVision too. But also I think the idea of like originality, or I guess the poet's desire for originality, and I guess the poem's possible skepticism about it is fascinating because there is like a higher level of like pop culture and what feels like the same stories getting picked up in different places, and then there's the search for the specific, in both in the speaker's relationships to their friends and like the speaker's dreams. And yeah, I mean I didn't think of the first scene as a scene of originals or a scene of non-originals, but the way that even the speaker's regular life gets infiltrated by different scenes from that are themselves imports from the world is interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to phrase this correctly, but I think I want to go back to what I was saying about episodes. Like this poem is so dense that at the end of every stanza, I did not want to move on. I wanted to go back to the top of just that stanza and read it again, right? And so it almost makes me feel like, Eli, why did you put all of this into one 4-page poem? Slushies. One stanza gets onto the 4th page. So I want to make that analogy again, that like when you watch a TV show, what we do now, right, is save up a bunch and what's that called? When we watch a whole bunch? Binge watch. It's like we're binge watching this, right? But one at a time would have been delectable too. Like, I'm not insulting that they're put together because obviously they are on theme. I love where we go at the end. And how it calls back things that have been happening through the whole poem, right? But it's almost like each one of these could also be delicious on its own, but you're binge watching. That make any
Can we talk about that ending? Because I think it is kind of an important bringing together of all the strands, the various strands that he
absolutely
has woven. So thinking on my feet, people, because we have just read this together, but as the poem closes, I guess it's the bottom of page 3 where we're arcing up into the closure. When the friend comes home, the speaker's crying on the couch. And we're thinking, I mean, I'm thinking that the speaker's watching Twin Peaks or some kind of other franchise. Yeah, it is. I think it is Twin Peaks because the protagonist is catatonic for 16 hours. So that would be, yeah. So we can have this moment where he says the line and has the suit, and we hear the famous song. That seems pretty clearly a Twin Peaks reference to me. And so he has this emotional closure of the watching the episode and having the friend come home, and then makes a leap to how it feels, which is like a dip in a pond in the deep woods, which is this kind of rebirth or baptism experience at the end where he feels like I'm never sure if it is when I sink into the water or exit that I become someone else. Wake always with a lyric on my lips. This is the me that I've missed. The one that survives the factory reset, the franchise reboot. So it's the person, the speaker, who becomes the franchise reboot, who gets to start over again, which is a cool idea. That's not what we expect when we see that term, franchise reboot. We don't expect it for the person, but it seems like that's what they're longing for, this sense of melancholy almost.
I love how you're reading this, and I'm so glad that Twin Peaks is in the conversation, because without that, I don't know what the it is in the second stanza of part 3. And when I read it, I thought I was having a little mini stroke, right? Because it it doesn't want to make sense without the illusion, right? So when you came home, I was crying line break on the couch, rewatching line break, its rejection of closure. I swear to God, I thought it was the couch, like that this person was trying to like close or open the couch and it just wasn't doing it, you know, like it was a sleeper. And then its protagonist catatonic for 16 hours. There again, I think, is that the couch? Right. So like this, like, are you catatonic on the couch? Like I just,
Uh-huh.
you
The
know?
rewatching, I thought they were watching TV. Rewatching is all I needed, you know?
Yeah.
And it was whatever they were watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt like that moment, if you don't know about the Twin Peaks moment, which I did not, that moment was a little bit destabilizing, and I might say confusing, because it's written as if I already know what the show is, or
Yeah.
what the speaker is watching, and me trying to guess, if I haven't seen, which I haven't, and I haven't seen the show, like me trying to guess what the protagonist was doing and why their middle finger was just like it definitely jars you out of a poem that for most of for up until that point has been very inclusive and generous. I think so. It's a problem of construction for sure.
I think that the ending of Twin Peaks was not very satisfying. It resisted closure. And I think that's why it is the walking, talking middle finger. That, you know, everyone is expecting it to be summed up and it wasn't. It just opened up into more possibilities.
Yeah.
But I understand that if you're missing the whole Twin Peaks reference, that may not be clear. And I wonder if that's, you know, like when we were talking about the Mad Hatter poems, maybe it is franchise reboot Twin Peaks, you know, maybe it's a clarity as far as the title goes, but you know, we're not going to get into the edits here for the poet, but you know, maybe there could be some further guidance.
Oh, well, holy shit. This is the poet who is doing the Mad Hatter?
No, no,
No.
no,
No.
no,
Oh,
no, it
okay.
isn't.
Sorry. Okay, now I'm having my own sort of
No.
Yeah.
fugue of allusions and references. Okay. Different
No, I think
different poet.
It's
Okay.
because you're
now
in the
our listeners
future
are
and we're in
loyal.
the past, Marion.
That's what it is.
And,
Slushies, what you can't see is me doing this sort of like space-time continuum dance.
Can I add one more complicating layer to the reading? And it's already a very dense poem, a very dense reading. But the image of the VR man is so striking and so well placed in the poem. And I want to read it as the speaker's sense that he has something like there's a kind of veil over the world. That's very Wordsworthian. But there's like a veil over the world, and some moments, some relationships invite the reader to finally, like the speaker to finally see something else happening. I maybe I'm asking for too pat a reading, but I don't always feel like watching Twin Peaks and watching movies is similar to like being freed of one's illusions. And that just might be because I maybe I'm just being too like critical, and I'm like, you know, like media is also illusory. Media is also given in some way as a form of veiling. So I guess there's a very interesting reading possible where at the end, what is actually revealed is that the performance isn't unveiling. Like the curtains opening are both artistic. It is both like an artifice, and it's possibly freeing. And I think the speaker is struggling for most of the poem with the feeling that either romance and movies and love aren't really there, or they are there and you have to accept like the artificeness before you can actually access this. But I'm curious about how other people feel about that relationship between media and self-realization or self-discovery in the poem.
I actually think you put your finger on the motor, so to speak. Like I think that's exactly the now that I understand that that Twin Peaks is so like built into the fabric of this poem, that I'm looking back at the diner moment, right? Of sharing quotes, like passing quotes back and forth with this beloved, right? You know, it now it totally resonates as a way of not only being a consumer of media, but participating in the franchise in a way, like the extension of it is part of the exchange with the lover, right? Or this person, this significant person. So that I think you're right, Toby, that the revelation at the end is that, you know, it's Russian dolls, but the Russian dolls are infinite. You know what I mean? It's just like constant one veil behind another veil behind another veil. So that, and I don't know if this is what you meant, but like even when the curtains part to the sycamore trees, it's still like within this like these layers of representation, because like even the poem is representing reality. Like it's just, you know, elephants the whole way down or something, you know, like whatever that image is that's meant to be
Turtles.
deeply philosophical. Turtles, elephants, right? That it's just, you know, it's the, what is that? Like, is that Plato's the theory of forms, right? It's just like one representation after another representation does create a kind of like existential nausea, right? An ache and lament that feels consistent in the poem for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Which I wouldn't have seen. So I have to say, like, I was really entranced just by the music of these lines. Like, there's a way that the cadence of the poem, it just keeps you in it, which is also tied to the idea of the poem, right? Like the way you become this sort of engaged in media text and these like interesting parasocial relationships with the fiction and the characters, right? Like from my experience of reading the poem, I was in it from the start, bumped out a couple of times, but mostly just in it and caring, even though I didn't have the illusion.
I think another part, and I think Toby's right to focus on this VR headset moment, is the difference that this poem is showing us in the consumption of media. It opens with kind of this shared re-experiencing of a cultural touchstone, so much that it has its own almost like amusement park setting, right? Like this diner you can go to experience the setting of the show, right? So they go there, they make almost like a pilgrimage to do the thing, to say this lines back and forth, right? And you know, as we go through the poem, the speaker's going to the movie theater alone, but has a conversation with people outside the movie theater. And he's watching then there's this guy with the VR headset, which is such a claustrophobic experience to me. He is completely divorced from reality. He's having his own emotional experience to the world without truly being in the world. This old man, you know, he's crying and no one knows why. He's like a blind man almost, you know. Um, and then the speaker is watching a show on the couch. So, and also we have the scene to back up. I missed this, but in the Uber where he's having his own thoughts about the poem, but being bombarded with the Wandavision commercials. So it's kind of this looping, but it's not a shared experience. It's becoming a smaller and smaller, more insular experience. Um, and I think that's the key in the end if the speaker's trying to take the headset off.
Yeah.
Maybe rejoin the world, go touch grass, see the trees,
Mhm.
hopefully find love. Um,
Mhm.
all of those things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that callback there at the end. If I grasp gently, I can take the headset from her voice. And it works with, you know, we are building up to this self-realization, this self, the stanza right before that one, the penultimate stanza ends with, wake always with a lyric on my lips. This is the me of mist,
Mhm.
right? So I just love that that's where we lead to, that all of this is about seeking the self while we are bombarded by all this external stimulation and, you know, yeah.
I have one more question for our panel here. I was interested, Marion, when you said at the beginning in the diner that the you is the beloved, because when I read it, I thought it was a friend and that there's a you later that might be the beloved. So I just was interested in if
Yeah.
people thought the you was a stable you throughout, or if it was like you as a friend, you as a beloved, different yous as we go through the poem.
My sense was that it was a friend. So, and I think that's because the you that returns continues to be the friend. I think in the third section, it's seeing you, seeing old friends. This is how I always feel. And the possible love interest, who's kind of like a great, it's a great decoy in the poem. Was this a coworker who the friend has to remind the speaker that, hey, you know, you're chasing after the fantasy of a melodramatic tension rather than actually, like, you know, excited about a person, which is, so I do think that the poem is addressed to a friend and probably a beloved friend. I think the kind of transformative gesture that's often attached to love is transposed onto friendship in this poem. And I think that's quite lovely. I do appreciate friendship.
That's so beautifully said. I was actually struggling on the word beloved because I have been in that position, but in a failed version of it. So my husband loves to quote like TV shows, like, and this is like one of his love languages. And I don't have things memorized, right? So he'll be like quoting from Friends, or he'll be quoting from movies, or like The Big Lebowski. And I have to ask him, like, is that you, or is that a movie, right? And so that's in my mind, like the notion of sitting over coffee and cherry pie and being able to trade lines is a form of like love language, because usually John is like sending out these like, you know, little lyrics, and it's like a, you know, call and response, but I'm failing at the response part of it, right? I'm like, I can't. So that's why I think Toby, you put it beautifully. Like there's a friendship here. They have a way of communicating, and it is definitely like a dear relationship, I think, for the speaker. I don't know. What do you think? I think we're ready to vote.
Well, I mean, all this talk, I guess there was a little flaw, there was a little complaint, but mostly we're just kind of fascinated, right? What are we doing? We're unpacking and unpacking and wanting to linger.
Right. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
I was just gonna say there's like one or two of those bumps I might want to ask the author to, I mean, might suggest a light edit just for clarification, right? But mostly it's just been fun to think with this poem, right? And like as a community, like build up meaning for it. That doesn't often happen, or it doesn't always happen, rather, right? Toby, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna mention that the dream section is probably the longest set of lines, and depending on how you read it, you know, you might enjoy the dream section, or you might feel like it. Some people always say that don't put dreams in poems, but I do think the dream is interesting in some ways. Yeah.
It is a dream, but it's very located in the physical world, you know. So I think that might help make it more present.
That's a good point. Yeah. Feels very grounded.
I don't like that rule, Toby. Don't put dreams in poems. That seems a little too broad, you know.
It's pretty draconian, yeah.
You know what, though? It'd make a great title for the episode.
I mean, we've had editors through the years, right, who like have their own aversions, like way back. Remember Brian Brown said no cats, no cats, no teacups.
Right.
Like, boom, get that out of here. I have it with color names in a list.
Mhm.
I think that's really easy and weak ass.
No
Mhm.
cicadas?
Really, Lisa? You're a cicada hater. Okay.
Well, I mean, I have cicadas in my poems, but man, if
Mhm.
you read any poems from the South, it's just cicada after
Well,
cicada.
cicadas and kudzu. Cicadas and
A
kudzu,
lot of-
right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm more simple-minded about it. I hate center justification. If I see center justified poems, I'm like, oh, but then I have to give it up and get over myself to read it. Yeah.
What's
your thing, Toby? What do you not tolerate?
Man, that's a good question. I think I've probably been proven wrong on every single one of my like previous
Yeah.
prejudices, so I try not to I think I've excised most of them.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me think about this. I think there's a certain kind of, well, you know what? I'll say the center justified poem. Until I read Ross Gay's Beholding, I was like, center justified poems, why? And then Ross Gay
Right.
was like, I'm gonna give you a whole book of that and you're gonna like it. And so I was like, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Prove me wrong, Raske.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe that's the title of the episode.
Prove me wrong, Ross Gay. That would be great.
Well, should we vote on Eli's poem? Are we ready?
I think so.
I feel
Yeah.
that all right.
Let's do it.
So, Toby, what we do is we call it throwing thumbs. We literally put our fists in the air and we go 1, 2, 3, and you put thumb up or thumb down. I am anti-maybe. That's a 0 tolerance thing for me. So don't do this. Up.
Don't do that.
Commit. You ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's in.
Woohoo!
Go Eli.
Go
Congratulations, Eli.
Nice.
I feel we are so lucky to have
Yeah.
this poem. And listeners, again, if you didn't listen to part 1 while you're listening to part 2, go back and listen, but read the poems. We accepted one on the last episode and now this one, so I'm honored.
And we'll also put the link to Matthea Harvey's poem in the show notes that is mentioned in Eli's poem. So you can read so many poems if you go to the show notes.
Yeah, and then all the Twin Prigs fandom sites.
Yes, they have their own wiki. So
sure. Yeah, my brother was one of the people that was obsessed and just read everything that somebody came out with Laura Palmer's diary during that time. The girl that was dead, somebody wrote the book Laura Palmer's Diary. Yeah, I remember all that hubbub. Anyway, Slushies, please let us know how we're doing, what you thought of these poems, and anything else you'd like to say to us. And anybody here have anything else to say?
We're so glad Toby could join us today. Welcome, Toby,
Yeah,
and thanks
This
for being our
was
guest.
so fun. I was telling Jason I'm actually a slushie. I listened to the podcast, so it's so fun to actually be on the thumb side of the situation. It's really awesome.
You know what? I was going to ask you, but once we were recording, I was going to say, did you get a chance to listen to any? Like, and then I didn't want to put you on the spot if you had it. You know,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Yay! All right. Okay, Slushies, keep listening and especially keep reading. Woohoo!
Bye, Slushies.